Alright, so, Star Wars versus Warhammer 40k Episode 2. I told you guys I wasn't going to do a long intro, and I'm not. We're just going to go ahead and get started with this. I'll stop it if I feel like talking. Let's get into it.
Now there's a foe worth fighting.
Okay. Really? Okay. Oh, few scant months before his culmination of his plans, Supreme Chancellor Palpatine of the soon-to-be reformed Galactic Republic soon finds himself potentially contending with a severely destabilizing force. Having received the information he required from the Dispatch Republic Task Force, Palpatine's mind and concerns turn away from them, sending one last message to the doomed expedition before focusing elsewhere. Meanwhile, Jedi Knight Renpai, the task force, and his young Padawan ignorantly linger near the world of Zap, nearly unaware of the danger fast approaching. Jesus, I can't talk! Nearly all. Okay. He's done a good job of building this so far, and I really can't wait to see, because I hear this picks up, and I'm really expecting something now.
They had been stationed within System K749 for 2 weeks now. 2 weeks of watching Dr. Sheena and her team pace and argue and tap on their datapads. 2 weeks of watching his master, Jedi Knight Renpai, do almost nothing but meditate. 2 weeks of doing everything in his power to escape that meditation. At first, Gaffin took shelter with the clones, but that proved only marginally less irritating than listening to his own breath, since all they did was drill and complain about drilling. They didn't watch holovids or play Pazak, at least not most of them. Their hobbies, passions, and fun-time distractions all had to do with fighting, or training to fight, or cleaning weapons, counting ammunition, or sometimes comparing war stories. Gaffin's master had once mused to him that the Republic had never created anything as efficient and effective as the clone army. An entire army and armada of what amounts to be tamed Mandalorians. The Republic will never lose another conflict due to strength of arms. Maybe that was true. Maybe it wasn't.
Now, here's the thing. I have stated several times, the later Imperial Stormtrooper wouldn't stand a chance against the Imperial Guard in any way, shape, or form, just because of the sheer lack of discipline. The lack of discipline is what led to certain things happening within the Empire in the later stages. But if you're talking clone troopers, those are a different breed. The Imperial Guard, with the exception of certain regiments from certain worlds, would be on even parity with them. Just considering the sheer amount of training that the clones go through. But if you're talking a standard clone trooper versus a standard Imperial Guard, I give the edge to the clone trooper in that regard. But clone trooper versus Cadian, not even a chance. Not even a chance. The Cadian's gonna win.
Gaffin was no expert in Mandalorians, though he figured
and let's not even talk about the Death
Corps.
Corps.
Ahsoka would know a fair amount by now. He had known her as a learner before she had been taken for training under a proper master, and he had heard of her exploits in regards to that nearly extinct warrior culture. More troublingly, he had also heard that she had chosen to leave the Jedi Order, though he knew only a few of those details. His pondering was interrupted as a group of clones entered the hallway he was looking over, led by his master. The Padawan barely moved, only tucking his feet closer to his chin as he watched through the small grate above them, and listened. "We've checked the entire ship, General. I'm not sure the boy is still even present on the Honor Hound," said Captain Kraken. Even as he spoke, the clones behind him were clearly looking for Gaffin, peering into spaces where he might fit and opening the maintenance access panels as they passed them. He almost laughed. They'd never find him like that, and they'd never even believe he could fit into the ventilation system, much less check it. He is here, Captain. He's just slacking off, said Renfai with a shake of his head. What are you going to do when you find him? The captain asked. The Jedi General shrugged. I suppose I'll have to force him to make up for all the lost time he wasted. 3 days of isolated meditation will do us both some good.
There you go.
Gaffin's blood ran cold in time with Captain Kraken's whistled reaction. Not pulling any punches this time, eh, sir? The clone captain said with a snicker. Well, if we discover that he was not slacking off, perhaps helping Dr. Sheena, then maybe it would only be 3 hours of meditation.
You better run, squirrel.
Instead of 3 days.
You better run, squirrel.
The clone tilted his head in confusion, but Renfai said nothing more. The statement clearly struck Captain Kraken as odd, and he remained in the room even as the Jedi moved on, looking around suspiciously. Ah, blast it. Open up these vent covers. I know he probably can't fit in there, but that boy is damn flexible. All the Jedi are. The other clones moved to comply, but Gaffin had left even before the captain had issued his command. The boy had decided he'd be dyed red and black and grow horns before he willingly walked into a 3-day-long meditation session. He inched his way along the tight confines of the vents, making himself weightless with the Force while pushing and pulling himself with the tips of his fingers and toes. He was 14, soon to be 15, but he hadn't quite hit his growth spurt yet, and was making full use of his size before he lost it. Lots of learners had expressed a desire to grow quickly, but Master Yoda was smaller than all of them, and he was Grand Master. It wasn't long before he found himself edging along the ceiling of the impromptu science laboratory that the researchers and scientists used to do their work. He stopped when he was just above Dr. Sheena, a Syrian scientist who worked for the High Chancellor as one of his staff. It was apparently rare for her to work outside of his gaze, and Gaffin knew why. Dr. Sheena was jumpier than a loft cat in a spice rack. Smirking, he stealthily undid the bolts holding the grate he was looking through, concentrating on each screw with the Force, one by one. Before long, he was lifting the panel silently away and dropping down to land 3 feet in front of Dr. Sheena, who had been looking down at her datapad when he landed. Almost walking directly into the Padawan, before pausing and snapping a scowling face up at him, she did not react well to his presence. Hey, Doc, how's it? She screamed, so loud and so suddenly that Gaffin almost didn't precognate fast enough to cover his ears.
See, this is why I don't trust kids in horror movies. They're bad. They're bad kids. The bad kids.
Every one of the beings in the room dropped what they were doing to look over at the pair, a sudden stillness taking hold. Gaffin smiled sheepishly and was about to say something in an attempt to break the tension when 8 clones shoved into the room, rifles out. It took a couple of minutes for everything to recombobulate after that, but eventually all the scientists were back to work, the clones went back to guard duty, and Dr. Sheena went back to referencing her datapad, only rarely interspersing a glare into the mix for Gaffin's sake.
There you go.
Why are you wound up so tight? Gaffin asked.
Damn, come on,
For
man.
some reason, his words seemed to annoy her even more than his surprise did. First of all, I'm always tense around Jedi. You are dangerous, illogical, and problems seem to go out of their way to find you.
Hey.
Even, or should I say, especially, the little ones like you, she snapped. More like we go out of our way to find them, he muttered. And secondly, she continued, and I'm not that little. There are scarier things out there than Asajj Ventress and her separatist friends. If your Jedi magic was half as impressive as your order says it is, then you should have seen this before we did. As if to prove her words.
Why are you so mad? You need to calm down. Ventress. I'm trying to remember. Okay, now I remember who she is. Okay, there we go. Okay. I'm old. You gotta let the memory kick in.
She walked over and thrust her datapad into his hands. Gaffin hummed and nodded as he looked down at the datapad, though he understood nothing from inspecting the odd data sequences and jargoned results written all over the digital file. Do you see? She asked. I see a datapad I can't read, Gaffin said blankly. Dr. Sheena huffed, snatching the pad out of his hands and then showing it again from her hands. This part right here, she said, pointing to a box filled with text and a long sequence of numbers and letters written in Bothan. These are the results of a hyperwave spectrogram analysis. Do you see this number here, after the dot? Gaffin nodded. Yeah, that's Bothan for 3.7, right? That's close enough, I guess. The point is that there is never supposed to be a number after that decimal. It makes no sense. It's too much. Too much what? What do you mean?
Too much
asked,
skull.
a trickle of unease dripping its way between his thoughts.
Too much skull. That's what there is too much of. She's got too much skull, okay? Like, legit, look at that. Moving on.
Dr. Sheena was always a raw bundle of nerves, but this was a bit much even for her. He could feel her panic, feel how much she was suppressing it. The doctor was genuinely terrified. You idiot! It's a hyperwave! Don't tell me you don't know about hyperwaves! She said, incredulous. Can you meditate on them? Because if not, I don't think Master Ren'Phi would really... No! It's got nothing to do with your dumb magic. Look, every time an object moves in or out of hyperspace, it leaves a gravitational wave, a hyperwave. It's like dropping a stone in a pond. The bigger the stone, the bigger the wave.
Okay.
Okay, Gaffin said. But don't we use radiation to track hyperspace travel? Yes, because hyperwaves are normally too faint to be used reliably. A single Venator-class Star Destroyer has a hyperwave reading of 0.00003. That's not even detectable by a planet-side scanner. Gaffin felt like the floor was slowly dropping out from underneath him. But then why can't we even record this? Didn't lots of sensors get triggered? Yes, hyperwaves are harder to read, but they travel much farther and faster than Coronu radiation, which dissipates relatively quickly when compared to the rolling momentum of a hyperwave. But what does that mean? There aren't any Confederate forces or Republic forces operating outside the galaxy.
It means shit just got real. Yeah, I'm liking the way this is done. I'm really liking the way this is done. Bravo.
Isn't there a natural phenomenon that could explain this? Gaffin asked. Dr. Sheena shook her head and slid her finger across a screen, swiping to a new page of the report. There are sometimes special meteors with certain mineral elements which can react with tachyon fields to briefly enter hyperspace, but the largest one of those ever recorded had an estimated wave of 0.000000007, and it only traversed a quarter of a light minute before dropping out of hyperspace. It can't be that. Well, what about Purgles? Space whales are pretty large, and they can drag their wounded into hyperspace, so maybe it's just a bunch of extragalactic Purgles towing something? She looked at him flatly. Extragalactic space whales towing something with a higher mass than potentially the entire Republic fleet. Do I actually have to tell you how stupid that sounds? Well, it's not some giant monster, so what are you even so scared of?
Oh, yes, it is.
The unknown, Gaffin shot back. No, you discount parlor trick salesman's apprentice. Think. It's not Nat.
Somebody get some kid some aloe. This girl's dropping burns on him, and that ain't fair. He's just a kid. Why is she so angry?
And it doesn't belong to us or the Separatists. Think that it... He stuttered, flustered and blushing, but drawing a blank. It's a fleet, she shouted. An extragalactic fleet! A huge fleet! A veritable solar system of stuff just got thrown into close orbit of our galaxy, and it is most likely stuff that belongs to someone, understand? Gaffin felt chills. Well, wait, he said. How do we even know they're dangerous? She looked up from the pad, showing him a huge red radius near the system. A line underneath it said, projected movement potential. We don't. What we do know is that they have a larger fleet than us, than potentially any single military to date. And that is as good as knowing they are hostile.
Is this just... Because they didn't exactly specify how big the Imperial fleet was that dropped out of the war. and into the Star Wars universe. So, I don't know exactly how big the fleet was. It was never specified. Here we go.
Gavin said nothing after that, letting the information be absorbed into him. "So, what are you doing now?" he asked, almost numb. "We are trying to figure out exactly where this fleet is supposed to be right now," she said, tapping away in a frenzy. "Aren't you going to report this to Master Renfai?" "What for? I already sent a report to the Chancellor, and I told you, you can't do anything about this. You might as well not be here. We're too far from the fighting to get clone reinforcements all the way out here, now for a week at least," she snapped. "Well, no, we can't do anything by ourselves," Gavin admitted. "But we could, negotiate for help from nearby systems? Reinforcements, maybe? They don't have to be clones," he ventured. She put her datapad down with a clatter, and he was sure she was going to yell at him again. But when she turned back to look at him, she wasn't glaring at him. Well, she wasn't just glaring at him. She was also blushing. "Oh, frag, right. I guess we could do that."
You're going to need a lot of help.
It had been nearly a week since Orion and his allies had been stranded in deep space by the failing of the fleet's navigators. Far too long by his estimation. The chapter master had watched as every single three-eyed psyker across his broad fleet, and those of his allies, reported the same horrid chime. The Emperor was dead. There could be no other truth. At least this was what they howled as they were dragged from their viewing ports and sight stations. The problem behind this was twofold. Firstly, word of the Emperor's evident demise was spreading panic and heresy through the fleets like a plague born by words. Fed by the fear they faced in their becalmed state, it had been all Orion could do to instate order where he could and flush chaos into space whenever he found he was unable to subdue it.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
Whether the Emperor was dead or distant, the navigators were almost entirely useless, and that left them floating in the void with nothing faster than a beam of light to travel by. It would take them hundreds or thousands of years to reach the edge of the galaxy at materialistic speeds. He needed warp travel back online, and he couldn't wait around for the navigators to get a hold of themselves. Already, Chapter Master Javik Thune of the Crimson Razors had departed with his entire chapter fleet, along with nearly half of the Astra Militarum and a quarter of Battlefleet Zektek. He didn't know whether to call the man a fool for charging into the warp without navigators, or a visionary for doing what Orion was about to do now. Black Templars and their unofficial successors were not known for their tact, discipline, or patience, but galaxy be damned if they weren't decisive.
Oh no. No. No, Black Templars, not the Black Templars, let's just not.
"Sir?" asked Brother Tordennis. He stood behind the HoloLens operator, waiting to be signaled to begin. Orion felt his face.
If you're from the Star Wars universe and don't know anything about Warhammer 40k, let me appraise you of something. The Black Templars are about as homicidal as you can get. They are the definition of no fucks given, and they're beyond zealotous. They're my favorite chapter.
Titan, but nodded, standing to address the glossy obsidian lens pointed towards him by the tech adept and his boxy contraption. When the ancient space marine saw the blue light on the surface of the device flicker to life, he began to speak. "Brothers of the Skywatch, cousins of the Tempered Hands, allies of the Astra Militarum and Battlefleet Zektek, it is time for elucidation. All of you have heard the damned importance cried out by our navigators, and I have now gathered enough information to say with certainty that the truth of our situation is far stranger than we could have expected, yet less dreadful than we may have feared. Our astrogators have been manually observing and cataloging the constellations around us in an attempt to discern our precise location outside of the galaxy. All of their findings return with one conclusion: the constellations are wrong. Either the universe itself has been impossibly rearranged, or we are not looking at our own galaxy. Our attempt to breach the Cicatrix Maledictum has somehow resulted in our forces being transported unthinkable distances away from our Emperor. He is not gone. We are. He paused then, letting his words sink in before continuing. Now that we know what situation we face, we have only one recourse. We must enter the nearby galaxy and take stock of our new situation once within it. Perhaps we shall find a way to return among these strange stars. And if not, it may be that we were meant to arrive here first and prepare the way for our Imperium to come. In either case, I call now upon your courage, your faith, and your strength, for we will need them. There shall be no reinforcement, no resupply. The Codex says nothing about this kind of situation, nor does any other protocol. Our path is ours to carve, lest it be carved into us instead. Fate has thrown us far from our undying Emperor, and expects us to wither under its burden. But fate is a fool, for fate does not yet understand that distance and time are mere petty obstacles when faced with the determined faith of the Imperium of man. He took his seat then, watching the lens adjust to track him. Steel yourselves. We go forth to find the unknown and make it kneel before the will of man. Faith is the duty of the righteous, and only in death does duty end.
There you go.
Go now, and prepare to do yours. He nodded, and the light flicked off. Orion turned to look at the line of his assembled captains, standing near the back of the room. Send out the orders to redeploy the navigators. Chain them to their stations if need be. All I need them to do is give us a direction and keep the ships near each other. If they won't or cannot, shoot them.
There you
Ensure
go.
the replacement is present. And if the replacements do not capitulate, asked 5th Captain Anar Solston.
Shoot him.
The chapter master turned his bright yellow eyes on the man, intense as twin rings of unblinking stars. We are departing via warp space at 1300 hours sharp. This will not change, whether we have navigators or not.
O eternal God Emperor, preserve us from the dangers of the void.
Oh, I love this. I honestly can't wait to see more of this. I'm going to be watching these as much as I possibly can. This is a first contact that I expect to go obscenely poorly. The second that anyone, especially if it's Black Templars involved in this, if the Black Templars are involved in this, this first contact is going to go about as well as dropping white phosphorus into, literally water. It's going to go piss poor. The Black Templar are not diplomatic. None of the Space Marine chapters are. The Imperium itself isn't, but compared to anybody else, the Black Templars are the last guys you want to send. In any case, we're going to move on from this one into episode 3. It's good. What can I say? Of course, I'm going to post this information down below. I'm going to keep this short and sweet. I will see you guys next time.